Hey, what is going on? It is your host of the Eric Bach Show, Eric Bach. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to break down how to build muscle and lose fat by the end of 2025. If there's one goal I hear more than anything else, it's people saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to lose fat. I don't want to build muscle. I want to do both. So here's exactly what you need to know. Here's how you can make it happen. So we can go from right now in September to looking and feeling absolutely fantastic by the time we get into the new year. So the best way to lose fat and build muscle is to attack each goal independently and focus on optimizing that particular behavior. And let me break that down. Building muscle, losing body fat, two polar opposite things when it comes to calorie requirements. Even though building muscle, yes, will help speed up your metabolic function and help you lose fat, and getting leaner will help you build lean muscle more effectively without getting body fat. The issue is many people cannot focus on one thing long enough, and the idea of recomposing, building muscle and losing body fat at the same time is so painstakingly slow and has to be detail-oriented that 95% of people cannot do it. So regardless of what the data says, humans are going to human. Your fastest approach is going to be getting lean first, and that's what you need to focus on right now. You need to be going all in on fat loss. When you go all in on fat loss and you do it correctly, by extension, if you have not done this correctly before, you will probably actually build a little bit of lean muscle. And there's the kind of crux. You can do both by optimizing for one if you've never done it correctly before. And so here's what we need to focus on. If we focus right now on getting leaner, we have to understand that losing body fat is about 4 times faster than the muscle building process. We can lose 1 to 2 pounds of body fat per week if we're dialed in, even a little bit more if we have a lot of body fat to lose. So if we focus first on getting a high protein diet, so we're getting about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight. Let's say you're 280 pounds, you want to get down to 200, about 200 grams of protein would be a great start. If we get that while creating a calorie deficit and we are resistance training 3 times a week and doing it properly, we can lose body fat and add a little bit of lean muscle by extension of getting adequate protein intake and training correctly. Mentally, the focus though needs to be on getting lean now and focusing on building later, because when we focus exclusively on losing body fat, we will accelerate that process. We will get faster results with it. When this happens, we will build momentum. That momentum will turn into more motivation. Over time, when motivation leaves, you will now have established habits that are going to help you get leaner and stay leaner for the long haul. And when we get leaner, you're also going to boost your insulin sensitivity, meaning your body can more effectively break down the calories that you will need and you will be consuming in November and December, like all of us do, more effectively for building lean muscle tissue without that body fat spillover. And so here's exactly how I would approach it. During the first month, I would leverage what we call our metabolic reboot protocol. Here we like to use 16-8 intermittent fasting. We go with a lower carbohydrate approach and a high protein intake. And so here's exactly what you can do. I would get a pen and a piece of paper out and rip through this as we go. First, what you're going to do, you're going to set your protein towards 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. That's how much protein we'll want to have each day. Next, we are going to take your body weight currently in pounds times 10. That's about how many calories you should be consuming. Now, there might be a little bit of nuance. This is where coaching comes in to make it a little bit different. But let's say, happenstance, that you've got about 160 grams or 160 pounds of lean body mass. That's a lot, actually. Let's say we're kind of aiming for about 160, and your body weight's currently about 200, right? So body weight times 10, 200 pounds. And then we have 160 grams of protein. Multiply that by 4. We're doing a lot of math right here. We have our protein intake. From there, we will go lower in carbohydrates. In this phase, I actually like to keep carbohydrates around 100 grams per day or lower, and the rest of your calories coming directly from fat. Here, we're going to use a 16-8 intermittent fasting approach, meaning we're going to fit all of our calories in within an 8-hour time window. So this could be having your first meal at about 11, and then you stop eating at 7 p.m., right? The rest of that time is going to be fasting. And the reason that we want to do this is all diets that create a low-calorie state are going to help improve insulin sensitivity. I find that my clients have a better overall amount of success when we use intermittent fasting to jumpstart the process in the very beginning, because when we do this, it allows for more freedom and flexibility during the evening meals where you're more likely to run into friction with family, with friends, with other obligations that you have, right? So it's going to be 16-8 intermittent fasting, low to moderate carbohydrates, high protein, around 1 gram per pound of target or lean body weight. So in this case, about 160. When we do this, this is what's going to, it's going to help us, directly improve insulin sensitivity. Intermittent fasting can convey a little bit more of a benefit directly than other diets, at least in my personal experience with myself and with my clients. The research is a little bit up and down on that. But in addition, when we have these longer breaks from food, we typically will see some decreases in terms of at least gut inflammation, better gut health, better control over cravings, all of which is really important, because the biggest issue that most people have when it comes to losing body fat isn't necessarily the math, how many calories to eat. It's navigating emotions. It's navigating hunger signals when you're tired, when you're stressed, and when you're angry, right? And so we want to lean into this for the first 30 or so days of a fat loss protocol, and your body's going to be in a much better state. As mentioned, better insulin sensitivity, you will be leaner, you will have better control over your hunger cravings, so on and so forth. A lot of my clients in this phase, they'll drop 10 to 15 pounds. Is all that body fat? No, of course, there's going to be some water weight, bloating, inflammation, poop, pee, all that good stuff. But by extension of this, you have a really good rapid jumpstart to be able to go from that point. Now, during this first phase, training volume in the gym should be a little bit lower. I like to train 4 days per week with about 5 or 6 exercises per session with an upper lower training split. And each workout is going to be about 45 to 50 minutes. During each of these workouts, we want to be taking sets close to failure. I like to say 1 to 2 reps in reserve, meaning if you're doing a dumbbell bench press, that last set that you're doing, you should be just about on death's door with maybe 1 rep left before you cannot do another rep, right? And the reason we want to emphasize this type of training, particularly when we're in a calorie deficit, is we need our body to send a signal to our muscles that says, hey, we need to keep you. Because when we train to actually maintain our lean muscle mass directly during a fat loss period, this is what specifically tells our body to maintain that lean muscle mass. If we don't, if we just train to burn calories, then guess what? Our body's actually going to burn off some of our lean tissue as well, because we're not actually giving a reason to hold on to that strength, hold on to that lean muscle. So that's how we want to train directly in the gym. If you want to find out more about specific workouts and exercises, definitely check out other videos on the YouTube channel. You can check best of arm, best of back day, best of legs. All these workouts are fully laid out for you and written down, so you have a clear-cut way of how you need to train. On the cardiovascular side of things, we need to focus on getting 8 to 10,000 steps per day. I always like to say, if you're getting 5,000 steps or less, I want you to bump it up to 8. If you're already getting 8, bump it up to 10. If we just focus on walking, particularly during this first month, and increase your overall activity level, it's going to decrease stress, you're going to improve digestion, and you will burn a few calories, which is going to aid you directly in terms of fat loss. So that is the first month. It's all about building momentum. It's about keeping things simple, but here is the caveat. I do not like to stick with intermittent fasting or low carb phases longer than 4 to 6 weeks unless people have, we're talking like 50 to 100 plus pounds to lose. And the reason is this. If we're pushing a calorie deficit, body weight times 10 is actually a pretty significant calorie deficit if you're somebody who's active, right? And so in that case, what can happen after 4 to 6 weeks, we start to notice decreases in terms of performance. We start to notice decreases in terms of overall health and overall function and mindset, all of these different things. There's some research out there as well. I don't have it directly in front of me, but this was with high performance athletes. They could follow a calorie deficit of 25 to 30% for 4 to 6 weeks before performance really started to decrease. I've noticed a pretty similar window with a lot of my clients, even when they are not high performance athletes and not quite trained to that same level. So after about that first month, what I like to do here is that I roll into what we call our sustainable shredding phase. So what we do here is we move to what we call 4-4-40. Here we're having 4 meals about 4 hours apart with at least 40 grams of protein per meal. The reason this works so well, when we eat at regular intervals, so every 4 hours, 7, 11, 3, and 7, for example, this gives our body consistent hunger signals. When people mess up with nutrition, it's because they are very inconsistent with what they eat and when they eat. And when stress comes and there's not good, healthy foods and options available for them, they lean into whatever's going to be convenient, which is why you will very rarely see a drive-thru that's packed at noon. But if you go past a drive-thru, trust me, next time you go past a fast food place, check it out at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, jam-packed. It's because these people didn't necessarily plan and they need something right now. Right? Something to keep an eye on. So we got this 4-4-40 protocol, at least 40 grams of protein per meal, 4 hours apart, and 4 meals per day. Super simple. Now we can titrate that protein up and down. Let's say your protein requirements are 200 per day, not 160. That would be 4-4-50. Or if they're 120 grams a day, be 4-4-30, right? You can make that adjustment based on whatever is going to be most relevant for you and what your numbers are looking like. And again, if you want somebody to put this together specifically based on you, based on your biology, you know exactly where to find me. Send me a DM over on Instagram with the word lean, and we will talk coaching. But with that said, 4-4-40, we want our calories to be anywhere from 10 to 12 times body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, that would be anywhere from 2,000 to 2,200 calories. That would put you in a really good spot there. And again, we want carbohydrates to be a little bit higher here as well. So typically with carbohydrates, we're going to be around the same amount that we are for protein. So 1 gram of protein or of carbohydrates per pound of body weight. The reason we want to do this, I'm not a huge fan of staying low carb for a prolonged period of time because when we're training hard the way that we should be to build and maintain as much lean muscle as humanly possible during a cut, Carbohydrates are going to be the best source. They are going to buffer or reduce cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone, which is also elevated when you're in a diet, right? This is, again, an issue with low carbohydrate diets long term. It's going to provide better performance, better pumps, and so on and so forth. That's going to be very motivating for keeping you in the gym and keeping you dialed in. In addition, when we have a prolonged low calorie, low carbohydrate diet, which a lot of people enter new phases of fat loss in, and they're just trying something new that they haven't done before, there can be a downregulation in terms of thyroid function. So carbohydrates are crucial for that component as well. So when we do this, we start to increase those carbohydrates. Specifically, when I'm talking the elevated carbohydrates, about the same as protein, I'm talking more specifically on our training days, then we're going to have better overall training performance. We're going to give our metabolism and give our body a little bit of a break. We're going to reduce cortisol and we're going to feel a lot better. On the days when you're not training, right? So say you're training 4 days a week, then you're off for 3. Then I like to bring the carbohydrates back down to about 100 grams or so per day. Because again, for most of the people that I work with personally, they're eating at restaurants or on the go consistently. Keeping carbohydrates a little bit lower is easier at that point, and using that as a primary method of calorie control than it is to go low fat. I mean, seriously, if you go to a restaurant and you get a piece of chicken, you think you're getting a chicken breast with 2 grams of protein, and then you see how they actually cook it. There's like 5 tablespoons of oil in that pan before they give it to you. That's just the reality of what it is, right? So those are little considerations that we need to make throughout the process, and we will be in a lot better position. Month 1, metabolic reboot protocol, 16-8 intermittent fasting, lower carbohydrate approach, and high protein. Second month, what do we go into? What we call sustainable shredding. This is where we add carb cycling. We have higher carbohydrates directly on training days, lower carbohydrates on the off days. We're actually increasing our meal frequency as well, eating every 4 hours, 4-4-40, meaning 4 meals, about 4 hours apart, and about 40-ish grams of protein. That can be titrated up and down based on where you're at. Now, if you've done this correctly and you've coming in with a healthy metabolism, many of our clients are losing 15 to 20 pounds within this anywhere from 60 to 90 day window. And for most people, this is exactly what they need to do before they build lean muscle. A lot of guys specifically think they need to lose 10 or 15 pounds. Reality is they might need 20 or 30. This is how it is. Most guys have less muscle and more body fat than they want. It's a really hard thing to accept. And it's something that I also have to accept every time I do a cut for a photo shoot or something like that, right? So just prepare yourself accordingly. Now, let's say that we got to the place where you are 12 to 15% body fat. You can see your abs or you're pretty damn close to it, because that's about how lean you want to be before you really try to pivot over towards building muscle. If you've done this correctly, you've shifted your habits. Metabolically, you're a lot healthier. Hormonal status, probably better in terms of testosterone, lower in terms of cortisol. Thyroid function is better. Insulin sensitivity, all that stuff is in a better spot, right? Let's say that you're there. Great. Now we're coming into the holiday season. Maybe we're middle of November, we're into December. This is the time to focus on building lean muscle. Because your body's in a much more receptive state, it can take the additional calories that you're going to be putting in anyway and be able to use those as building more lean muscle tissue, right? That's the important component. When you enter a time period trying to build lean muscle, you should be lean first. If you're not, your body's not going to be able to take those additional calories and really use them to build muscle hyper effectively, right? So do that hard work of getting that cut in first and then shift directly towards building muscle. And so what needs to change when it comes to going into a phase like this? And this is what we call kind of our chisel phase or our chisel protocol. Calories need to ramp up. If somebody's been pretty lean, we're going to gradually ramp up. We do kind of what's called a reverse dieting phase, where maybe we go from, let's say you're at 2,000 calories, and then the second month you're at 2,200 calories. Maybe we start you at 25, right? And 2,500 calories for an active, say 190-pound guy is not a ton, right? But we don't need a massive surplus to start building lean muscle. So we want to get our way back up to maintenance, get back up to whatever that is. We'll use 2,500 as that number right now. And we want to be able to hold that and see if we can eat at maintenance, say for the first 2 to 4 weeks. Are we actually adding a little bit of size? Are we still staying lean? Are our habits holding, or are we slipping back? Once we have that little phase right there, our body's going to be a little bit more established in terms of holding that level of leanness that we've now worked to get. And then we start to increase calories. Now, the beautiful thing about increasing calories and building muscle is eating more won't necessarily lead you to build more muscle faster. And the impulse for so many people is to jump right into trying to build muscle as fast as humanly possible because they see how quickly that they can lose body fat. That's the last thing you want to do, right? You can look at a lot of different equations, whether it's looking at the Alan Aragon model, whether it's looking at Lyle McDonald's work, whether it's looking at the Casey Butt equation. All of these different muscle models highlight that for somebody who's a beginner, fast progress would be 1 to 2 pounds of muscle growth in a month. If somebody's not a true beginner, we're talking half a pound to a pound. And if somebody's advanced, it could be, frankly, 2 to 5 pounds over the course of a year as fast muscle building progress. So we need to have that overall mindset. We need to have that expectation truly dialed in if we want to be able to stick with this and really make progress that we want. And so what we need to do, we have that expectation. Our calories are back up towards maintenance. All we want to do here is we want to start increasing them maybe 10%. So if it's 2,500 calories, maybe we bump up to 2,750, right? And let's say we're gaining some lean muscle. We're progressing well. We have a higher carbohydrate intake now because we're trying to build muscle and we're training volumes probably a little bit higher. Then we're in a much better space, right? Well, cool. If we can hit that 2,750 and we're gaining and we're staying leaner, and we start to plateau, then what we want to do is we want to bump it up maybe another 10%. So maybe we're at 3,000 calories, right? And so that's really the process. It's taking that biofeedback, analyzing how much progress am I making? Am I in line with building anywhere from half a pound to 1.5 pounds of muscle per month? On the scale, this might be a little bit more if carbohydrate intake increases, right? And really continue to track and monitor. Am I getting leaner? Am I staying lean? Or am I getting fat? Is the body fat spillover then getting acceptable? And that's how we consistently just bring our calories up in a way that's going to be beneficial, in a way that's going to support my muscle growth, and go from there. Now, on the training side, what needs to happen? So here's an important concept that a lot of people do not quite understand that is really beneficial. When you are in a calorie deficit, when you're trying to cut down, you have fewer calories. So inherently, your body has fewer resources to actually recover from that training, right? When we flip that script and now we're focusing on building lean muscle and now we're getting more calories, guess what? Our body has more fuel to be able to rebuild that muscle tissue because we're no longer in that catabolic state trying to cut down. So we want to gradually increase our training volume as we bring those calories up. If our training volume is going up and our intensity is going up, well, guess what? The best type of fuel for that type of exercise is going to be carbohydrates, right? It's going to primarily work through the glycolytic system. So what we need to do is primarily focus on increasing carbohydrates, keeping fats a little bit lower because we have that improved insulin sensitivity now, right? We can handle those carbohydrates, and protein pretty much stationary at that 1 gram per pound of body weight. This isn't the time we just want to start eating everything in sight. We don't just want to be smashing pizza, right? We want to stay dialed in and relatively clean in the foods that we're eating. But contextually speaking, if we are in November, if we are getting over into the holidays at this point, here's something that can be really helpful. You've probably heard me talk about our 4-2-1 fat loss protocol, but the same idea works pretty well when it comes to building lean muscle. So let's say you know that each and every single weekend, you are going to have a party, a work party, a celebration, a feast, whatever it is, because that's kind of what happens for like the back half of November, really until the new year. Well, we want to budget that in. So we might be eating at maintenance more so for most of the days leading up to that big event. Let's say it's Saturday, right? So maybe you're eating basically at maintenance calories for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then Saturday comes, you're going to have, whatever holiday stuff is going on, right? Well, what we want to do for that day is we want to focus on being disciplined early in the day, right? So we're going to get a training session in. We want to hit our protein. We probably want to keep fats quite a bit lower, very low for most people, and focus a lot on protein and produce. When we do this, we start to build a buffer nutritionally. We have provided our body what it needs in terms of training, in terms of lean protein. But now, because once we go out, once we're having a meal, once we're wining and dining with friends, chances are those calories are going to go absolutely through the roof because people cook a lot with butter and butter and oil and all that stuff, right? It makes food taste great. Well, if we build that buffer, we can still exceed, we can still go over that calorie kind of limit that we're looking for the week and have it actually support our training. And then that next day, we're right back on track. We don't need violent swings up and down and have all these complicated days. But what we do need to have is a strategy, an understanding of, okay, there's a limited amount of muscle that I can build throughout the week, right? So how can I structure things as well as possible to be able to build that lean muscle, but not have it lead to a bunch of body fat spillover, right? And so once we do this and we have that plan, it becomes very simple. You're in the gym, your training volume goes up. I would recommend still training 4 to 5 days per week, probably an upper lower or a push pull lower body split with an accessory day where we're training, whatever weak points that you have. So one way I like to do this, push, pull, lower, and then we call it a vanity day, right? So if you got some weak points that you're working on your chest. Great, we hit a little bit more chest volume, but maybe some pulling volume as well to kind of balance things out. It allows you to hit a higher training frequency overall and still continue to grow and continue to adapt. And really, that's what the process is, right? The muscle building process is painstakingly slow. People mess it up and never really build sufficient muscle for a couple of reasons. First, they constantly change what they're doing. You don't need to do that. You can stick on basic programs and get incredible results for a long period of time. Number two, they don't treat it like a skill. We've seen recent research from Brad Schoenfeld, amongst others, who highlight that all rep schemes can build muscle. The key with this is you have to get good at the exercises and you have to have progressive tension overload, meaning whether you're training with a 3 to 5 rep scheme on something like a squat, a deadlift, a bench, whatever it is, or 8 to 12 reps, which is your classic hypertrophy zone, or whether it's 15 plus reps, your endurance zone, you have to be taking those exercises close to failure. If you're not, your body's not going to have that reason to change. It's not going to have that reason to grow. So we got to train consistently. We got to train with progressive overload, and we have to train close to failure, regardless of the rep range that we use. But if we do that in the same space that we have adequate nutrition, we're getting a slight calorie surplus to build that lean muscle, and we started with a place where we are leaner, then we'll be in a much better spot to not only look great, but also feel great going into the next year. To recap, the biggest mistake that most people make is they try to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. And by extension of it, they just start throwing shit at the wall and can't stay consistent, right? So focus on getting leaner, lose that body fat first, use that metabolic reboot protocol. Second, you want to make a pivot after 4 to 6 weeks and use something like our sustainable shredding method, where we implement carbohydrate cycling, where we increase calories and meal frequency. This prevents metabolic downregulation. This helps you improve your performance in the gym and keeps you motivated. Third, once we get down to that 12 to 15% body fat spot, that's really the sweet spot for men, then you're in a good spot to start bringing your calories up. We want to be able to have a little bit of a maintenance phase where we get back to that maintenance so that you can hold that level of leanness and reinforce those healthy habits that you've built. And by extension from that, we start to increase the calories, get back up to maintenance, and then about a 10% increase every few weeks until muscle growth kind of stops going and you start to have more body fat spillover. Then you're in a sweet spot. Then it's really going to be a matter of staying consistent. It's going to be a matter of getting stronger. It's going to be a matter of making fine-tuned adjustments to your training, to your nutrition, and optimizing that recovery so you can build muscle and lose body fat. And so if you're looking at this, if you're listening to this thinking, yeah, I do want to get in better shape, there's still plenty of time this year. But the reality is most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a short period of time, and by extension, dramatically underestimate what they can do with the right plan, with the right implementation. And so if you're sick of spinning your wheels, thinking, I know exactly what to do, but I'm not doing it, or I'm working really hard, but I'm not getting results, what you should do next is very simple. Go over to Instagram, over at Eric Bach or at Bach Performance, and send me a message with the word lean. We have our coaching scholarship program opening up momentarily. You are not going to want to miss this because what we're doing is giving away over $10,000 worth of coaching scholarships to help you look great naked without living in the gym. This is an absolute banger. Every time that we do it, all of our clients love it. All of the new people who come in are so thrilled that they can get coaching at such an awesome deal and make this life-changing transformation. I don't want you to miss that. So make sure you head over to Bach Performance, send me a message with the word lean, and I will break down the next step to get you going and help you look great naked by 2026. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Take care.